What's up guys, John the Morgile here. I'm gonna do a debunking video of a globe-tarded forgery video that was put out a couple years ago, last year. This video is shot in Tel Aviv, and it is allegedly to prove the curvature of the Earth over a distance of about 29.4 miles, or about 30 miles. And what I'm going to show is that this video has all sorts of problems with it and is indeed a forgery. So the first thing that we're going to look at is a slowed down look at and I'll go back and forth in reverse. This is slowed down, or no, this is real time, then I'll slow it down. Look at what they're doing, which is they are showing you a telescope which is a few feet above the water, several feet above the water, and then cutting to a totally different telescope which is probably lower down to the ground. And there's a few reasons why I'll show you this. One of the biggest reasons has to do with that cut right there. You might have noticed it, and I will slow this down. Again, this is still real time, and we'll just keep going back and forth with it a little bit so you can see what's going on real time. Now, I haven't edited this video in any way other than you know, slowing it down and playing these clips in forward and reverse, just to give you an idea of what's going on here and how it is indeed a forgery. So this right here will be the last reverse. Right here, this is the last reverse. And if you don't catch the cut right about now, we're going to put this down to quarter speed. Right now, this is in forward, quarter speed. And you'll see that he is putting his camera down towards the lens of the telescope. And it looks very nice, and then you get this cut. Right there, there's a cut. And now you've cut to a telescope which has a camera fixed to it. So that's definitely a cut. And there's more to it than that, but let's just look at this a few times, again in slow motion, just to give you a better idea of what we're looking at here, which again is indeed a forgery. And I'll demonstrate this using a variety of methods, but first just get used to looking at it. Now what we're playing in forward and reverse is a 10-second clip total, right? So in quarter speed, the entire either forward or reverse segment that I'm playing lasts 40 seconds, right? Because it's a 10-second clip played at quarter speed. And so just to give you an idea of the time frames involved, and just take a look at it, absorb it, watch it a few times. This one is in reverse. Everything looks fine. This part here is obviously a camera which is fixed and mounted to the telescope, and in reverse we see the cut right there, and now we uncut to the camera that is not mounted to the telescope, and you can see that there is no resistance or jiggling around of the telescope as this camera is allegedly mounted to the tripod. Let's look at it again. Zooming in with a non-mounted camera, and bright light, little waves, then cut, and back to the mounted camera. Now I will mention that from the time where they take the handheld camera and put it towards the telescope and you get that first image to the time where you get the cut and the second image is exactly 2 seconds in real time, or 8 seconds in quarter time. So we'll just look at this one more time. This is in reverse at quarter speed. We're looking at it in reverse again, just to give you one more good long look at this in quarter speed. Notice he changes the angle of the camera with an allegedly non-mounted camera to the telescope, which would be very difficult to do. Although, again, this is a forgery. There's your washout, which allows for the cut. There's your actual camera, again, this is in reverse, zooming out on it. This is a pretty well done job. They do a worse done job later on, but that was a pretty well done forgery, although I will show that even this is a forgery. So we'll look at it in quarter speed one more time. And we're looking down through the telescope with a camera that's not mounted. Bright light. And a cut. Bright light. And suddenly you have a fixed camera to the telescope. And we know that it's fixed to the telescope because he will change angles, which would be pretty difficult to do and keep in focus. See, change the angle of the telescope. That would be very difficult to do without a mounted camera. Now, whether the camera is mounted or not is sort of irrelevant, as I will demonstrate and you shall soon see. However, we absolutely do not see the shaking and undulation that would necessarily accompany mounting the camera to the telescope. And so they sort of made a mistake by making this a little bit too smooth. But this isn't even the whole big deal, but they did a great job with it, although it's just a bit too perfect until you slow it down and really pay attention. If you sort of see what I mean, if you're going to pop that camera on and mount it to the telescope, it would jog things around a bit, but nope, they just pop it right on there. It's almost as if they didn't even pop it on there and then they start changing the angles. But let's go through the frame by frames. Okay, so one last look into the quarter speed. We're looking into the telescope, looking for that first before the cut. We'll freeze it right there. And you can see that we've got a pretty well-defined waterline, well-defined horizon. And again, this is before the cut. Now let's transition through the cut to the next frame, which is exactly 2 seconds to this frame through the cut in real time, 2 seconds in real time, 8 seconds in quarter speed. And we'll just go backwards through that one more time, through the cut, and back to the original first frame prior to the cut. Okay, so this is pre-cut, and just one more time. Going backwards to the boof. That was post-cut. This is zooming away from the camera, and we'll demonstrate how this is absolutely trick photography afoot here, and not just in this one instance in the video. So here you can see a freeze frame of the second after the cut. So zooming in again, just so we all know we're on the same page. There's the first frame before the cut. 2 seconds later, the cut. First frame after the cut, which again is the cut itself took 2 seconds between these two frames. There's the next 2 seconds after the cut. Next 2 seconds. And the next 2 seconds. And finally, the next 2 seconds. It's a total of 10 seconds that we're looking at here. Now, this is the first frame prior to the cut. We'll call that mark 0. And what you can see I've done here is drawn a red line across the water line. And we'll just show you again, zooming in. Prior to the cut, that was the frame we were using right there. There's your cut, washout, and next frame. Okay guys, so just to give you a quick rundown of what I've done here, just zoom in a bit. Okay, so as you can see, what I've done is I've taken snapshots every 2 seconds, and this would be real time, 2 seconds. And I've drawn a line. This first one is prior to the cut, and the second one is after the cut. And you'll notice that what I've done is I've made a red line for the initial image. Then on the next image, the red line shows the contour of the ocean, and the purple dotted line shows the previous contour. So in other words, this matches up exactly with the purple dotted line, as you can clearly see. Matches up very nicely. It's the exact same line. Okay, and so that's what I did throughout the whole thing. So you can just see that I've taken a contour of the horizon, the ocean horizon, undulating ocean horizon, for the previous 2 seconds and the current 2 seconds. The previous 2 seconds is always going to be the dotted line, and the current 2 seconds is always going to be the red line. So just scrolling through, you can see what I've done here at a glance. This part here just shows you this wave, and we'll go through this frame by frame, but the devil's in the details here, and I'll just quickly summarize. This contour shows you the second, which is after the cut, right? So we're comparing this one here with this one here, and you can see there's barely any change within 8 seconds, and there's barely any change between any of the frames except for in between the cuts. This has nothing to do with the angle, it has to do with the contour of the horizon. So very good proof that this is a cut, but we'll go through these frame by frame. I just wanted to give you a broad overview of what I've done, so hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense when we go through the frame by frame. Alrighty. So, as it is clearly noted, this would be the 0 second mark out of a total of 10 seconds. This is prior to the cut that we already went over. And the next frame shows the second, which is right after the cut. And you can see the major change between the first frame and 2 seconds later, which is pretty major. Now, from going back to the 0 mark again, just to show you, that's the before the cut, and 2 seconds later after the cut, you've got a pretty big disparity in the two ocean levels within a matter of 2 seconds, which is a big problem, especially when you start looking at the further diagrams. So this is between the second and fourth seconds. So this is sort of the third frame or third snapshot. Hardly any change between the ocean horizon. This is clearly the 4th and 6th seconds compared. Hardly any change between the ocean horizon. Now the 6th and 8th second. Hardly any change between the ocean horizon. And next we'll have the 8th to 10th second screen cap compared. And of course, the 2 seconds between the 8th second and the 10th second, there's hardly any change in the ocean horizon. Just a little bit of undulation. And to give you an idea of how fast things apparently are moving in the distance, this frame is 2 seconds prior, and there's a wave off to the left, 2 seconds prior to the next frame. Again, this would be the 8th second and the 10th second in this 10 seconds that we've been looking at. Right. So you can see that between the 2nd second and the 10th second, there's hardly any change whatsoever. Very moderate change between the ocean horizon. That's over 8 seconds. Now, this doesn't really add up when you look at the huge disparity between the 0 second, or the first frame, and the 2nd second, or the second screen cap. So that's a big problem, because again, the first one was before the cut, and the second one was after the cut that we went over a couple of times. And I'll just show you again. This is 0, 0 compared to 0, 2. And we'll go back to 0, 2 from 0, 10. 8 seconds in between, and hardly any change whatsoever. So again, the first screen cap versus the 2 seconds later screen cap between cuts, and 8 seconds in between the 2nd second and the 10th second. 8 seconds apart, hardly any change, although within 2 seconds in between the cut, all of that major change between the ocean horizon. And again, looking at the 2nd second between the 10th second, hardly any change. Once again, looking at the major change between the cuts. So this is good evidence that we're looking at a cut. Now, we'll just run through these a little bit differently and show you exactly what we've got going on here. So 0 second is before the cut, 2nd second is after the cut. You can see that major change is definitely apparent. That's the only major change you'll see. From the 2nd to the 4th second, hardly any change, just a little moderate undulation, but certainly no major change. And between the 4th and 6th second, there is moderate change, hardly any change whatsoever. He did change the angle, but that doesn't affect anything. We're talking about the ocean horizon. Between the 6th and 8th second, hardly any change between the ocean horizon. And finally, between the 8th and 10th seconds right here, you can see that there's just very moderate, yet again, moderate undulation. Because again, we're looking across through a telescope across the ocean, so it does undulate moderately. And just to give you an idea of what's happening in 2 seconds, you have a wave off to the left, and within 2 seconds it migrates over to there. And again, that's in just 2 seconds. That's a sort of a wave and refraction going on. And there you have that. So hopefully you guys see what I'm saying in terms of the cut. Now, here's the big question that a lot of you guys are probably asking. Why would they make a cut? What benefit is there? Well, if they show you a telescope that's, 3.5 feet off the ground, and they put their camera right up to it, and then they cut to a camera that's, say, 6 inches off the ground, then they're tricking you. They're tricking you into thinking that there is more horizon obscuring the distant buildings. And the fact that they're making cuts, which is very obvious, hopefully you've gotten what I've said, I've demonstrated as best as possible. You can clearly see that there is a cut, and this is just one instance. The second instance is even worse. But they would make a cut in order to lower the telescope after the cut to make it seem like the horizon is covering up more of the buildings. This has nothing to do with Earth curvature, it has to do with perspective. So like if you lay on your belly and look across the ground, your horizon is going to appear to be very close. If you stand 6 feet tall, your horizon is going to be about 3.5 miles away. And you know, if you're 12 feet tall, then your horizon is going to be about 4.2 miles away. Your horizon distance depends on your altitude, and so the reason that they would do a cut like this is to trick you. The other big thing, you know, that I did point out is that if they are mounting or supposedly mounting this camera to the telescope, there would be, you know, shakiness, undulation of the telescope itself as they mounted the camera. It doesn't appear as if they're claiming to have mounted the camera because you don't have that shakiness and undulation, but they're definitely doing a cut from what appears to be a handheld camera going up towards the lens, and you get sort of a white out and then a dark out, and they cut to a camera that is obviously fixed to the lens, which I suspect they have lowered probably by a couple of feet. And really that's all that's needed. Okay, so this is obviously deceptive, and we'll get into a couple of more things why they've this video has obviously been forged. And upon close inspection, I urge anyone, and I'll put a link in the description, I urge anyone to do the same experiment that I've done, going through the video evidence, and you can clearly replicate what I've done. And hopefully this is making sense to you guys, but the rest of it is even worse for the purported Tel Aviv globehead. Now, I gotta hand it to them. They did a pretty good job in terms of this forgery, but you know, upon real close inspection, I say with 100% certainty that we're looking at a cut when there should be no cuts, meaning that this is at least disingenuous, absolutely deceptive, and a forgery. Okay, now here's another clip from the same video. This is it's the same area, they use different areas, but you can see they claim that they filmed it with the Galaxy S5 cell phone, which means they are not even claiming to attach it to that, to those suction cup looking things on the telescope. And so there's a few things wrong with this. You know, before I gave them the benefit of the doubt and assumed that they were indeed attaching the camera to the telescope. However, they obviously are not, because you can't attach a cell phone to a telescope. And even if they were attaching something to the telescope, you would have necessarily seen a bunch of shakiness going on in terms of the cut. But actually, it honestly appears as if they are not, which gives me yet another reason to understand that this is a forgery. Now, I've been looping about 17 seconds of footage. This is again, this is from a different observation point, a whole nother thing, and you probably didn't notice yet another cut, and this one is actually sloppier than the first cut. They didn't spend as much time on it, but they obviously spent a great amount of time and effort to pull this forgery off, that's for sure. It appears as if they have a camera mounted to the telescope just because of the steadiness of it. However, you cannot mount a cell phone to a telescope, especially without shaking the telescope around a bit as you mount the thing on there. But they're not mounting this camera on the telescope in real time. This is a cut, as you will soon see, and this cut takes, I think in real time it was about a half a second. And so we'll go through this a little bit, but I'm sure you probably didn't notice this until you go into slow time, and you really have to go back, instead of quarter speed, go into 16th speed in order to really see the cut that they did this time. It is very fast, but it's a lot sloppier than the first one. The first one they spent more time on, but let's check it out. Now, here's just a quick look going back and forth at this. This is the second cut that we were just showing, and you'd never notice it. This is real speed, and we'll even slow it down to half speed real quick. Your eye just won't notice something that's about a half a second or less in time span. So even at a quarter speed, which is where we're at now, you really can't make out the cut. They did, you know, like I said, they did a good job on this. They spent a lot of time on it, but this is sloppy because, and I'll show here in a minute, it doesn't match up with what it looks like to try to focus a camera through a telescope, especially, you know, outside in a, you know, basically a sunny day. Now we're down, this is a 16th speed, and you can start to see the cut. Now, I didn't do anything except for change this to 16th speed. That's the only thing I've done, is really slow this down. And you can see the cut right there, and now it's pulling away. This is very good editing, but I'm sorry, this is sloppy and it is fraudulent, 100% for certain. This is a cut. This is not somebody sticking their camera down and you know, making it look through a telescope. That's not how this works. There's your cut, breakaway. They used a little bit of photo editing, After Effects. It wouldn't be that hard to do, I don't think, but yeah, they must have spent some time on this. And they also go through some numbers in this video, but if they're being dishonest and making cuts, and obviously making cuts, we can't trust them. Now, we already know through experiments like the, everybody knows about the Joshua Nowicki Chicago skyline from about 60 miles away. Of course, this image was taken from Grandmere State Park, across Lake Michigan, looking at the Chicago skyline, which is roughly 60 miles away. Just to play it safe, figure in the height of the observer, give it some room for refraction, and even give the globe a few extra miles. We'll call it 55 miles away. And in that sense, according to the curvature calculation, the Chicago skyline, the base of those buildings should be about, well, 2,000 feet beneath the horizon, which means the tip tops of the tallest buildings there should be buried beneath the horizon by, you know, about 1,000 feet. So again, this is double the distance here, Chicago, from Grandmere State Park. It's double the distance that we were looking at of the Tel Aviv video, just to give you an actual picture of the flat Earth, as opposed to a very well done deception that if you didn't really sleuth into it, you'd think it proved a globe. This particular view, you know, they're looking at some sort of towers, smokestacks, and again, they're only looking at it from approximately 30 miles away. So we're talking about half the distance in terms of the Chicago skyline. So I submit that's why they would have to make these cuts, is to fool us. But just keep paying attention to this at 16th speed. This will be the last time, and you can clearly see that they are definitely making a cut right there, morphing, and there is your actual camera coming away. They're pretending that they're 3 feet above sea level, when in fact that camera there is probably right at sea level. Now, this is an actual telescope with an actual person focusing a camera through the lens. This is what it actually looks like in reality, to try to catch a glimpse of something in daylight through a telescope, you know, during the day, with a camera that isn't mounted. It would be shaky. It would be difficult to get it aligned perfectly. It's not an easy thing to do. And this just goes to show you what we should have expected to see in the Tel Aviv video that we've been watching. Quite frankly, the Tel Aviv video was just too perfect, in a sense that you don't have this sort of shakiness and difficulty focusing through the tiny little hole. But of course, it wasn't quite that perfect, because when you zoom in, slow it down, and look at the cuts, it becomes obvious that this Tel Aviv video, links in the description, is a deception. This just goes to obviate the fact that they are being disingenuous, they're cutting when they shouldn't be, and that just isn't scientifically plausible. So we'll take another look at this. Again, this is the second cut, but another problem that I noticed is the color of the sky. So just notice that it is a pretty clear and bright day outside, you know, through the regular camera. Without the telescope, there's the sky through the camera, and unfortunately the telescope should be brighter, but for some reason this telescope makes the sky darker, which really doesn't add up whatsoever. And here's the two overlapped. I'll try to scoot them around a little bit, but you can clearly see that the color of the sky in the telescope is darker than the color of the sky with the regular camera, and the ocean water itself is darker than the ocean water in the regular camera. And I did not change anything other than I didn't change any color, I didn't do anything to it except for change the speed and let you compare the two. Again, the telescope should be brighter than the regular camera, and that just doesn't add up. So guys, I think that about covers it. If you would like to watch the video that I was responding to in its entirety, you can go ahead. Their mathematics seems to be fairly well accurate, and I'll just post, they had all their stuff in meters and kilometers, and I went ahead and converted it to feet and miles, and I'll just put that in the description, because their mathematics is irrelevant if they are obviously forging the pictorial data. So with that, I want to thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you wish. If you'd like to support this channel and help me to keep making videos, as well as help me to stay alive and keep a roof over my head as I try to finish up my Flat Earth book, you can become a patron through Patreon for as little as 3 cents per day, or $1 a month, or you can support direct through PayPal to JonELANCE@gmail. You can contact me there as well. And there's a direct link, www.paypal.me/themorguile1. That's the number 1. Of course, you don't have to support. All of my content is indeed totally 100% free. However, if these videos have been helpful to you or someone that you know, then your support is greatly appreciated, and it does go a long way to help. So with that, God bless you all. Spread the word, spread the world, and peace.